Hi, I'm Whitney Morgan, Hashimoto's coach, gluten-free warrior, and creator of the Thyroid Reboot Method and the Gluten Gauntlet mini course. If you've got Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism and you haven't been living in a cave somewhere, you already know that eliminating wheat and gluten is the #1 recommendation of most health coaches and functional medicine practitioners. Wheat and gluten sensitivity is the #1 trigger for any thyroid disorder, and there's almost a 100% correlation between Hashimoto's and gluten sensitivity. So the research is clear. Wheat and gluten are bad news for women with thyroid issues. But did you know that there are other non-gluten foods that might be just as bad for your thyroid as wheat and gluten? There are actually 6 non-gluten foods that might be screwing with your thyroid. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you what those foods are and how to find out if they are standing in the way of your progress. But before we jump into it, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it so you'll get notified every time I post a new video. I've worked with dozens of women with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, and many of them tell me they don't experience much improvement after going gluten-free. Sometimes it's just because they're not as gluten-free as they think they are, and that wheat and gluten are still sneaking through their defenses. But often, the reason why they're not feeling any better is because of something called cross-reactivity. So what's cross-reactivity? Cross-reactivity happens when a protein structure of one food looks very similar to the protein structure of another food. And it's this similarity that can wind up confusing the immune system. And testing for cross-reactive food sensitivities is part of step 1 of my Thyroid Reboot Method. So let me give you a few more details. Here's how cross-reactivity works. Let's say your immune system is already on high alert and it's patrolling for that big bad gluten protein. Then it happens to come across part of the corn protein that looks almost identical to part of the gluten protein. The risk here is that the immune system will shoot first and not even ask questions later. What this means is that the corn protein gets tagged with a gluten label. And from that point on, every time your immune system sees corn, it mistakes it for gluten. Currently, there are 6 non-gluten foods that the immune system can misidentify as gluten. They are corn, rice, cow dairy, millet, yeast, and that's baker's yeast and brewer's yeast, as well as oats. Unfortunately, when most people go gluten-free, their consumption of these potentially hazardous foods goes way up. Have you had the experience of going gluten-free but not seeing any improvements in your health? If so, give me an eye roll emoji in the comments. Okay, so what's the best way for you to determine if your immune system is mistaking other non-gluten foods for gluten? Well, you have to test. You can't just rely on symptoms alone to be your guide. But not all food sensitivity tests are created equal, particularly when you are trying to identify cross-reactive sensitivities. Currently, there are 2 laboratories that offer tests that are sensitive enough to detect gluten cross-reactivities. They are Vibrant Wellness Labs and Cyrex Labs. I have used tests from both of these labs in my practice, but personally, I prefer the Vibrant Wellness Labs. I find them to be more sensitive and accurate and easier on the pocketbook. If you want to learn a little bit more about both of these companies, I will drop the link to their websites in the video notes. And to learn more about my Thyroid Reboot Method, just click on the link that I'll also drop in the video notes. Now, if you're watching the replay on Instagram, just head to my bio link. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, you can let me know by liking it, subscribing to my channel, or sharing it with a friend who's gluten sensitive or has Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. And if you have questions, just leave them in the comments. I do try my best to answer every one. Thanks, I'll see you next week. Bye.